In our last video, we told you how Rome crushed Carthage in the First Punic War. How Carthage lost its fleet, its territory, its pride. How Rome believed the threat was finally over. It wasn't, because in the ashes of that defeat, Carthage was raising something far more dangerous than an army. A boy being groomed for one purpose, to make Rome pay. That boy's name was Hannibal Barca, and he would grow up to become the man who came closer than anyone in history to burning Rome to the ground. This is how he almost did it, and the one decision that saved Rome instead. After the First Punic War, Carthage was broken, stripped of territory, crushed under reparations it could barely afford, humiliated in front of the entire Mediterranean world. One man refused to accept that as the end of the story. The general Hannibal Barca. He couldn't strike back yet, so instead, he rebuilt. He took his family to Spain and began carving out a new base of Carthaginian power. Silver mines, loyal tribes, a private army answering to no one but him. And he brought his young son along for all of it. Before Hannibal was even old enough to grasp what war truly meant, his father led him to a sacred altar and made him swear an oath. He would never be a friend of Rome. Hannibal grew up in army camps instead of a childhood. Soldiers, horses, siege weapons. This was his classroom. He learned how armies moved, how terrain could swallow an army twice its size, and one lesson more valuable than any weapon. An enemy can be defeated before the battle even starts, if you control what they believe. By 221 BC, Hannibal was just 26, and already commanding Carthage's entire army in Spain. Rome was watching him, but Rome had no idea what was coming. In 218 BC, Hannibal moved. Rome ruled the sea. So Hannibal refused to fight there at all. Instead, he did something no one expected. He marched an entire army, tens of thousands of infantry, thousands of cavalry and war elephants, overland straight toward Italy. The real enemy wasn't Rome, not yet. It was the Alps, snow, starvation, ambushes from hostile tribes, men and animals plunging off narrow mountain paths in the dark. Every single mile bled his army dry. By the time Hannibal descended into northern Italy, his force had been gutted by the crossing. But he had done what Rome thought was impossible. He was inside Italy, and Rome hadn't seen it coming. He didn't give them time to recover. At the Trebia River, he destroyed a Roman army. Then came Lake Trasimene, where he used fog and hills to trap an entire Roman force against the water and annihilate it. Rome was now facing something it had never encountered before. A commander who seemed to know exactly where its armies would move and exactly how they'd react once they got there. But Hannibal's masterpiece was still ahead, and this time Rome would throw everything it had at him. In 216 BC, Rome raised one of the largest armies in its history, roughly 80,000 men, and marched them toward a small town called Cannae. They outnumbered Hannibal by a wide margin. They were confident their sheer size would end this once and for all. Hannibal wanted them to think exactly that. He placed his weakest troops in the center and his most elite African infantry on the flanks. The line looked soft, breakable, exactly what the Romans wanted to see. They attacked the center, and it gave way. The Romans pushed forward deeper and deeper, certain they were winning. More men crowded in behind them, packing the center tighter with every step. It wasn't a retreat. It was a trap closing. Hannibal's flanks swung inward. His cavalry smashed in from behind. In moments, the entire Roman army was surrounded, completely encircled, with no room to fight and nowhere to run. What happened next became one of the bloodiest single days in ancient warfare. Ancient writers gave staggering casualty figures. Modern historians still argue over the exact number. What's certain is that tens of thousands of Roman soldiers died at Cannae in a matter of hours. Rome had lost another army, and this time the Republic itself looked like it might not survive. Panic swept through the city. For the first time, Romans genuinely believed Hannibal might march on Rome itself. He could have. The road was open. His enemy was broken. So why didn't he? That question still divides historians today. According to one ancient account, Hannibal's own cavalry commander, Hannibal, begged him to strike immediately, insisting Rome could fall within days. Hannibal said no. Maybe his army was too exhausted to besiege a fortified city. Maybe he lacked the siege equipment to break through Rome's walls. Maybe his supply lines couldn't support the push. Or maybe, for reasons lost to history, he simply judged the moment wasn't right. Whatever the reason, Rome was given something it desperately needed: time. And Rome used it. The Romans stopped meeting Hannibal in open battle, the one place he always won. Instead, they starved him out slowly, cutting his supply lines, picking off his allies, refusing every invitation to fight on his terms. It was a grinding, patient war of attrition, and it worked. Years passed. Hannibal stayed dangerous, undefeated on Italian soil, but Rome was quietly building the one thing that could finally beat him. A commander who had learned from every mistake made against him. His name was Publius Cornelius Scipio. Scipio had studied Hannibal's campaigns in obsessive detail. He understood the traps, the feints, the discipline behind every reckless move. And instead of trying to out-Hannibal Hannibal on Italian soil, he did something bolder. He invaded Africa. Suddenly, Carthage itself was under threat, and for the first time in over a decade, Hannibal was forced to abandon Italy and sail home to defend it. In 202 BC, the two men finally faced each other directly, on a field near a town called Zama. Hannibal still had his war elephants, still had veteran troops who had followed him across 2 decades of war. But Scipio had spent years preparing for exactly this fight, and he knew precisely how to counter every weapon Hannibal brought to the field. Rome won. Hannibal was defeated. Carthage surrendered. The Second Punic War was over. Hannibal spent his final years as a fugitive, hunted across the Mediterranean by Rome and its allies. When capture finally became inevitable, he chose to take his own life rather than be paraded through Roman streets as a prisoner. The man who once made Rome tremble was gone, but his legend never faded. Cannae is still studied in military academies today as the textbook example of total battlefield encirclement. For over 2,000 years, his name has been shorthand for tactical genius. And yet, Hannibal never took Rome. He crossed the Alps. He won at Trebia. He won at Lake Trasimene. He came within a single decision of ending the Roman Republic at Cannae. Rome survived anyway. Not because it kept winning. It didn't. It survived because it refused to quit when defeat looked certain. That refusal would define what came next, because Rome never forgot Carthage or Hannibal or how close it had come to ruin. And in the war still to come, there would be no Hannibal left to save it. Carthage would burn. Its empire would vanish from the map, and Rome would rise as the undisputed power of the Western Mediterranean. If you enjoyed this story and want to discover more fascinating chapters of lost history, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss the next episode. Tap the video on the left to discover the true story of Rome's beginning, and tap the video on the right to uncover the First Punic War, the conflict that changed the Mediterranean forever. The story doesn't end here. Keep watching and discover what history tried to forget.